Hi, I'm Marianne from the Upholstery Studio. For our tuffets, we've already shown you how to apply fabric, and now what we want to do is a whole new technique by using different types of yarns, knitting and applying the top. And we want to show you how to do that. For our oval, we've got the flat oval that just has a little bit of foam and some bonded on it. We've got our rectangle that has about the same amount of foam and a little bit of bonded. And for the two covers that I've knitted, we have two different types of yarn. I created a couple of samples. And you're going to want to do this because depending on how tight you knit and what your gauge is, we're going to give you sizes for all of these, but it has to be applied based on how you knit. So for this one, I created just a sample, felted it, and you can see it got really dense. It's really thick, and we figured out exactly how many stitches we were going to need to create this. Again, for the oval, I started out with the round, which was going to end up being the center. Again, tried to felt it. It really didn't shrink at all. So for this one, I kept all my stitches exactly the same size, whether I'm using this alpaca blend or not, and we'll create that and show you. But then on this one of the steps that we're going to have to take is we're going to have to felt this, get it in some hot water, and then show you how the shrinkage will work. I think to start with, the one that's going to be pretty simple is to take this oval and we'll put the cover on, and we'll show you those steps next. Are really to center this. So we've got our tuffet here, and we did put some fabric on it, and if you'll look on the back, it does have all of the holes in it because this is the same kit we would use if we were going to do tufting with the fabric. It's got our 4 holes for the feet, and what these holes give us are some center points that we're going to line up our yarn, our knitted top. So the first thing you're going to do, just set it on top, and what you're going to see, as you can tell, we've got some different lines on here, and you really want to get these lines set up properly. So on the sides, there are points where as I was knitting 2 together so I could decrease. On each end, I've actually got 2 of those, so I'm going to break that kind of in the center, and I'm going to pull those down. And in order to align this, I'm going to use some pins. So again, following this straight out, that's my midpoint on the side. And again on the top, same thing, you can see the decreases there. And I've got this one on here. Now, on each of the ends, the one really good thing is, that's exactly where I started. So I've got my little tails of the yarn where I started. That's one side, and I can follow that straight across, and I actually do have a decrease on there as well. And I'm going to put a pin there. Now, I can turn the whole thing over, and again, using these center holes and these center holes, that's where we're going to line this up. And the very first thing you're going to do is go center to center and side to side so that you've got the 4 starting points of where you want to staple this on. And that's what we're going to do. We're just going to staple this on. And this garter stitch that I used at the very bottom of this is a really good gauge because as you go around, you can keep the same number of stitches for your garter all the way around, and that's going to keep it centered on the top as well. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to center this on this hole right here, take out my pin, and put 1 staple in. Okay? And again, I'm using this line as the one that's going to make the round all the way around the whole tuffet for centering. Again, spin this a little bit because there's my pin. Bring this one over, and I'm going to do the same thing. Center it here. Okay. Now, side to side, get this one and bring it up. The nice part about the yarn is it stretches. There's my other center point. Take that pin out. Make sure I've got my row. Good enough. And we're going to staple that in place. Next one. Make sure I've got my row again. If you start it out right, it makes the rest of it really go quickly. Awesome. Now what you can do is work in between. And again, you're basically adjusting it and pulling it around a little bit. You don't want to stretch it too much, because if you stretch it too much, you're going to end up seeing through some of the stitches, especially where you did your decreases. So just pull it enough just to make sure that it's tight. And what we're going to do, we're going to finish stapling this on, and we'll show you how it looks when it's done. Okay, and once you've stapled all the way around the edge and you can see it's fairly even, you can cover the bottom with any kind of fabric. You can use just something plain, black denim. You can do whatever you want to, and then make sure you cut the holes for your feet. But on the top, you can tell it just turned out great, and it just perfect. Now, as you apply this, if you have any of the areas where maybe your stitches were even a slightly different size, or you have a little bit of a pucker, you can take your steam iron. Don't touch it to the top of the yarn, but with any kind of a wool blend like this, you can put some steam on it and then press it with your hand, and it'll actually help it shrink just a little bit so that those puckers go away. Just like the center. Even if you wanted to take for the center of this, you could plan to put a button in the center of this if you wanted to, and it really looks sharp. That's how we finish the oval. Let's go and see how we can felt the rectangular one. The rectangular one is one that I really love to have some fun with. I love felting. It's a lot of fun. And what we want to do is show you what you have to do in order to felt this piece and make it down to the right size. You can use a bucket like this, and we're doing that because we're filming, but normally what you're going to do is, once you've knitted your piece, you're going to take this and you're going to put it in your washing machine. Follow the felting instructions that you find online. What you're going to do is take just a little tiny bit of soap, because a little bit of soap is going to help. And we just did a little of that. And what you normally do is when you put it in your washing machine, you're going to put it in there with some towels or a pair of jeans that are not going to bleed. And then you're going to try to get this to shrink. So what we've done is we've heated up some water, and I put a little of that soap in here. And we're going to see if we can get this to shrink down. And you'll see it start to shrink right away. And we'll see how much we can do. The nice part about the felting too is that it makes all those stitches tighter, and it almost creates a mat, just like almost like a full rug, like you've upholstered this with a rug. It's just cool. Now we're getting a little bleed off the red because it's warm. Part of what helps it shrink is just the agitation, because once you start to agitate it, that's what really creates it. Now, if we can't get this to shrink enough by using this method to do this, we are going to take it in the house, but we wanted to show you just as a starting point what this is going to look like, because when I felted that piece, that smaller piece there, I did it basically under the tap water in the sink. I didn't really even use super hot water. But this one, I think we're probably going to have to put in the washing machine, just because it's that much bigger. So we'll bring this one back in just a couple minutes. We've completed the felting process on the tuffet top, but I need to tell you, we did take it in the house and we did put it in the washing machine. And you can tell it's very, very dense. It shrank a lot, which is exactly what we wanted. There's a little excess water in it, because what we did was we felted it for about 15 minutes in the washing machine on very hot water, but didn't let the spin cycle run because we didn't want it to stretch back out. But I do have a towel, and I'm going to just roll it up just to get a little of the excess water out of this. And then what we're going to do, we've got a couple of different techniques we want you to think about as you're putting this piece on the tuffet. Okay, we got just a little of the water out, and it's still going to be damp, and felting has to dry, and when it dries, it actually creates its shape. So what we're going to do, we've got a piece here of silky film. Now, silky is very similar to your dry cleaner bag that's on your clothes. You can, use one of those, and all you want to do is cover the fabric because we don't want the water soaking into the foam and everything. And what we're going to do is a two-step application. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to pin this on so that it can dry in the shape of the tuffet. Once it's dried, pull this off, and you're going to take this silky out. You don't want to leave this in there. In some cases, it doesn't make a lot of noise, which is part of the purpose behind silky, but you don't want to leave that plastic in there. You really want to pull it out. But it's there to protect the foam and the bonded while this felted piece is drying. So what you're going to do, lay it on top, and you can kind of see where we've got our corners, okay? So I sewed those corners together. I've got the other two back here. And what you're going to do is you're going to put those on first. So I'm going to flip this over. Pull your silky in so that it's covering everything. Make sure you got a little of that. You can just pull it to the top. Now what you're going to do is match that corner, okay? And you're going to pull it back, and we're going to pin it. Now, you can tell I've got a little different shrinkage in this piece, and this fabric that's on there helps me pin that. Take your other corner, line that up, make sure you've got about the same amount, and pin that one in place. And we're going to do our four corners first to get this shape laid out. Okay? Get the other red corner. And then what we're going to do is we're going to work through getting the other parts. This just feels so thick. It's just like a rug. How awesome. What I did was I decided to move my pins to make sure that I'm pinning out towards the corners to make sure that they're held in place, and then went to each side and marked the halfway point so that as I draw this piece in, I'm applying it in the same manner on all sides. So now, side to side, I've got a halfway point on this white. I'm going to take a halfway mark, and I've marked it on the side and figure out where my 4 inches, right there at 2, and then push that into place to hold that. Now, on this side, I want to pull the same amount. I want to make sure I've got about that same amount all the way around. And again, kind of where that midpoint is. Okay? We're going to leave those for a minute. Now go to the other sides. And again, see if you can find that midpoint, and you might have to stretch it a little bit. Keep your silky in place. And then pull that up. Kind of move a little of it with your hands just to form it. Okay? And based on the shrinkage, you might find that there's going to be a few of these until we get it shaped. Okay? Go to the other side. Again, pull that up. Okay, kind of find your midpoint. Okay, about the same amount in, and then push the pin in place. Hopefully not too far out so you don't poke yourself. Now, we want to do the same thing at between these two pins just to get that pin down. Okay, and we're going to pin that one, and then this one. And we're just going to keep working around, as you get it to shape. And having it a little damp like this helps. Awesome. Okay. My corner coming out a little bit. Okay. Now do these two. You can see you can kind of get some of those wrinkles to come out. That's pretty awesome. Must be on a staple. Okay. Even that one up. Now you're just going to finish this and you're going to let it dry, and then once it's dry, then what you're going to do is pull this out and staple it just like we did the oval one, and your project's complete. Cover the bottom just like you would the other oval with a little piece of denim or some kind of lighter fabric, and you're done. Make sure to mark where your feet go. As you can see now, the cover is on. Look at this. Isn't that wonderful? Now, as you're pinning it in place, you may have to come back to the front like we did. Straighten your lines out, stretch a little more in one place, and rearrange it just so to make sure, especially if you're using a pattern like this, that you have your lines in place. If you look on the back though, multiple pins are holding this in place. We did our center marks like we showed you, but then on each of the corners even came in and collapsed those down a little bit and pulled them in, and then put pins all in place, still with the silky film so that can dry. But that's a great application, and it's got the most wonderful feeling to it. Pretty fun projects for a weekend.